The views and opinions expressed on America's Workforce Union podcast and its digital media channels are solely those of the speakers and do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of the producers or sponsors.
Welcome to the America's Workforce Radio Podcast, the flagship production of the American Workers Radio and Podcast Network, where organized labor and its never-ending fight to protect the rights of the American worker come first. Now, presented by LIUNA, Laborers International Union of North America. Here's your host, Ed Flash Ferens.
The AFL-CIO lays out their most ambitious union organizing campaign ever. We're talking 2 million new workers to be organized in the next 5 years. Meanwhile, Starbucks workers now organized in 700 locations. And today on the show, the ironworker in Oklahoma now running for Congress. Welcome to the Friday, June 12th edition of America's Workforce, where we're available on at least 5 platforms. That includes YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Pandora. Trey Martin will be our featured guest on the show today. Who is he? Well, he's an ironworker. In fact, he's president of his local Ironworkers Local 48. They have about 200 members in the state of Oklahoma. We're going to talk about his path. He started out in fast food, realized he wasn't getting anywhere. Then he found the ironworkers, and he became very successful to the point he's now president. More than that, though, he's running for a seat in Congress. The primary is next Tuesday. And Trey says, I'm not running to play politics. I'm running because the system is broken and working people are paying the price. I've spent my life fighting for workers, standing up to powerful interests and getting results. And I am ready to take that fight to Washington. My priorities, focusing on what actually matters, ending corruption, insider trading, healthcare that doesn't bankrupt you. And he's got a story about that. His wife got pretty sick some years ago, and they almost went bankrupt. Higher wages, stronger jobs, standing up to big corporate power, honoring tribal sovereignty and rights, supporting our veterans, national security without needless foreign wars. There's more. Just go to the website, TreyForOklahoma.com. Trey, and that's Trey, TreyForOklahoma.com. He's our featured guest right here on America's Workforce, and we wish him well next week. Now, a brief look into the world of labor. This segment brought to you by Boyd Watterson Asset Management. You can find more at BoydWatterson.com. The AFL-CIO is laying out their most ambitious union organizing target ever. At the Federation's Constitutional Convention in Minneapolis this week, the Labor Federation passed a new organizing resolution with the goal of 2 million new organized workers by 2031. The resolution is called, We Are the Organized Power of Working People. It passed this past Tuesday, encouraging the Federation to coordinate multi-union campaigns, align bargaining dates across all sectors, launch a mass training program for rank-and-file organizers, draw a hard line on political endorsements. No candidate, listen to this, no candidate gets labor support unless they are willing to fight for collective bargaining rights and even organize outside the traditional process at the National Labor Relations Board. The resolution calls for maximizing resources and capacity and multi-union, multi-sector organizing campaigns. UAW President Shawn Fain, who has become labor's most visible example of how aggressive organizing combined with aggressive bargaining can feed each other, was the key speaker on a panel about organizing the unorganized. This is what Shawn said. I have always said that in our union, bargaining and organizing go hand in hand. When we bargain a good contract, people want to join the movement and they want to join the union. When the UAW stand-up strike against the Big Three won back concessions and gains, this was 3 years ago, unorganized auto workers were watching. Fain said Toyota, Nissan, Honda, Volkswagen, Mercedes, and Hyundai all gave their workers 10% wage increases and cut progression to full pay from 8 years down to 4. He called it the UAW bump. We all know why they did it, he said. They were scared to death that their workers were going to organize. Less than 6 months after the Big Three strike ended, Volkswagen workers in Chattanooga won their union after a 15-year battle. And that's a model worth paying attention to, organizing driven by successful bargaining, not separate from it. That's Shawn Fain, president of the UAW. So we'll see what happens here. Can't wait to talk to Fred Redmond about this when we have him on the show on the Friday of next month. We always do our first Friday with Fred here on America's Workforce. Speaking of organizing, last week, Starbucks Workers United announced that baristas at actually more than 700 locations across the country have now voted to join the union. The workers responsible for this milestone are based out of stores in Alabama, Chicago, and Illinois, along with Houston, Texas. While Starbucks executives continue to drag their feet on reaching a deal, more and more workers at the coffee chain are going to fight for a fair contract. So congratulations to Starbucks Workers United. Speaking of Starbucks, the National Labor Relations Board issued 2 rulings finding that the company violated federal labor law at stores in the Pacific Northwest. In the first ruling, the board upheld a finding that the company illegally changed its dress code enforcement at a Portland store without giving the union prior notice and an opportunity to bargain, which was a unilateral change to a mandatory subject of bargaining in violation of the National Labor Relations Act. So the board ordered the company to expunge the affected employees' disciplinary records and rescind the policy change. Now, in the second ruling, the board upheld a finding that Starbucks illegally interrogated workers at 2 Seattle stores about whether they plan to participate in strikes between April and July of 2023, and they ordered the company to cease the practice and post notices acknowledging that violation. It took 3 years for that to happen, but at least they got justice. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Trey Martin, the iron worker from Oklahoma, running for a seat in Congress. That story after this on America's Workforce.
You're listening to America's Workforce with Ed Flash Ferens.
It takes LiUNA to build North America's infrastructure. From roads and bridges to schools and skyscrapers, the men and women of LiUNA, the Laborers International Union of North America, build the projects we depend on. From constructing the Freedom Tower on the site of the former World Trade Center to untangling Washington, D.C.'s congested interstate, LiUNA members do the work that matters. Find out what it takes to be built by LiUNA at liuna.org. That's liuna.org.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the United Steelworkers. You can find more at usw.org. America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the Communication Workers of America. You can find more at cwa-union.org. This segment of the show is brought to you by the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees Division of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. For more information, please visit bmwe.org.
There is unity and strength for workers.
We are the USW.
We are the USW.
The United Steelworkers.
The largest industrial union in North America.
We represent 850,000 members in the U.S., Canada, and the Caribbean.
We work in metals,
rubber,
chemicals,
paper,
oil refining,
atomic energy, and the service sector.
We are steelworkers, standing strong and fighting for what's right.
America's Workforce is presented by the Laborers International Union of North America. Feel the power right now at liuna.org.
American workers are sick of struggling to get by. It's time to get ahead. In the Teamsters Union, workers are winning industry-leading contracts, historically high wages, fully paid health care, and retirement benefits you can count on. Across the country, Teamsters fight alongside our brothers and sisters to secure a better life. It's what we've been doing and how we've been living for more than a century. When we fight, we win. Join us. Be a Teamster.
Now, back to America's Workforce. Here's Ed Flash Ferens.
And remember, you can check us out on Facebook or follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter. That would be AWF Union Podcast. AWF Union Podcast. Union brothers and sisters running for, well, either a school board, a congressional seat, a Senate seat. It's happening in America. A lot of it is happening. And today we're going to focus on one race in Oklahoma. Trey Martin is an iron worker. He's also a union leader. He's a husband. He's a dad. He lives in Edmond, Oklahoma. He's a member of Ironworkers Local 48, about 200 members over there. He is running for a seat in Congress, and we're going to talk to him about why he is doing that. Trey, welcome to America's Workforce. Thanks for joining us. We have an iron worker here in Northeastern Ohio doing the same thing as you, brother. Brian Poindexter, we featured him on the show. There were 8 people. He was one of 8 in his primary back in May, and he won that seat, so he'll face the incumbent Republican come November. Just wanted to give you some words of encouragement. Now, you don't have 7 other people in your race. Is that right?
Yeah, no, there's just me and one other person.
Okay.
Thankfully, that'd be tough. Yeah, what Brian Poindexter did up there was pretty amazing. I've got the chance to speak with him a couple times, and he really took it home for us. It was really cool.
Yeah, obviously gave you a little more inspiration over there in the middle of America. TreyForOklahoma.com is a website. You can find a lot of information there. But Trey, let's start right there. A little background on yourself. I was reading earlier that I guess you found the Ironworkers when you were about 19. And I heard this story from so many people. They get into fast food and retail. They realize, well, I'm not going to make a living at this. So talk to me about joining the apprenticeship over there back when you were 19.
Yeah, that was really cool. And it was a really big step in my life. I mean, I kind of, back then I couldn't imagine where this would take me. Then I didn't really have a path, or even, I had no idea how I was going to get to the middle class, right? I was working, like you said, retail and fast food. I worked several different places and just getting nowhere. There was this guy that I met. We became friends, and he turned out he was an iron worker here. He told me to go down and apply, and so I did. About a month later, I got accepted. Another month later, I actually started working, and, just really took off from there. The apprenticeship taught me everything I needed to know about the trade, gave me benefits, retirement, insurance, and good pay. So I just really took off with it and just really enjoyed the work. And, once I got out of the apprenticeship, I started excelling and, got to the point where I was running work on the jobs. Then shortly thereafter, I ended up being here as an organizer.
How many years now with Local 48?
I'm going on my 20th year right now, and 12 of those I spent out in the field working, and the last 8 years I've been an organizer here for the all.
And you're also president of the union, is that right?
Yes, I'm the current president. I've served all kinds of. I used to be a trustee. I work at the apprenticeship sometimes. I'm the welding inspector, so I just try to get in anywhere I can and try to help out the local everywhere I can. And yeah, it's been great.
Let me ask you this: how's the work over there? I mean, we haven't done too many shows out of Oklahoma, and a lot of them. I mean, we've been scattered around the country, checking in with various locals and see how they're doing. How is it? How is the work over there?
It's pretty good. It's kind of been a rough 4 years or so ever since COVID kind of had a turn down, but we've got a bunch of stuff coming up now. We've got 3 active contractors that are here all the time. Got a new stadium coming up for the Thunder. Probably start hanging that iron. Hopefully near the end of this year. We've got a pretty big railroad bridge going on. It's really kind of exploded. Oklahoma City is growing pretty rapidly.
Well, it sounds like you're a Thunder fan. Well, I just want to commiserate with you because I'm a longtime Cavaliers fan, and the Knicks, they cleaned our clock on that one. So
yeah, they did.
But they got some fire in them. There's no question. There's no question. All right, let's talk about what you're doing now. When did you decide? And obviously there had to be some motivating circumstances, and that's what I want to talk about on the show. And obviously we'll get into your platform here. But I mean, look at it. This is a pretty big leap. Some people start, like Brian, he started on a suburban city council in Northeastern Ohio. You're taking that leap all the way to Congress here. Some are jumping right to senator. Dan Osborne is doing that over in Nebraska. So what motivated you? What happened?
I've really been involved in politics for quite a while, just keeping up with the news, watching Congress, and just seeing that, Congress to me looks just completely broken. They're at a standstill. They haven't gotten anything done. I went through this deal with my wife that was pretty rough. About in 2020, she started getting sick. We started going to different doctors and specialists trying to figure out what was wrong with her. Turned out, it took us almost a year to find out, and she dropped down to about 70 pounds. But it turned out she had 2 autoimmune diseases. Going through that experience, even with insurance and, just the bills rolling in, we almost went bankrupt. We almost lost everything that we had worked for just so we could try to keep her somewhat healthy. That really upset me, in all kinds of ways. And then watching Congress, who's been working on healthcare for my entire life and gotten nowhere with it. So, that was a big motivating spot for me when this came along. Like, if I can get up there and change something and actually have some representation from the middle class, then that's what I want to do. I want to get out and be part of helping people and fixing this system. There's so many people that are either underinsured or don't have insurance at all. I was wondering, how are these people making it? The truth is that a lot of them aren't. They're staying home and they're getting sicker and sicker. They're losing years off their life, and eventually they're dying. And that's not the America that I thought I was growing up in, where, if you don't make enough money, you can just get sick and die.
Yeah. How is your wife doing now?
She's doing quite a bit better. She was diagnosed properly and she's got her medications, but with those autoimmune diseases, they flare up from time to time. And sometimes, one flare-up can lead to a couple months of really fighting for your health. And that's where she is right now. She hasn't been able to work for a little while. She's doing okay, but we're just going through that, trying to recover from the flare-ups kind of thing right now.
I feel for you that there is no cure for those autoimmune diseases. And I know that all too well. I have 2 children with multiple sclerosis, and they got it in their teens pretty much. And
wow.
But they're still moving, with the meds and all that kind of stuff. They have issues.
Yeah.
But you got to keep moving forward. And to think about this conversation, I mean, you're a union guy, and those in unions have much better health insurance than those not in unions. And you still had trouble, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We negotiate our insurance. We have advisors that try to get us the best deals on insurance and most coverage. And yeah, still it was just not enough. Still when you go see a specialist, you're still getting a $300-$400 bill. You go to surgery, you still have deductibles. That was one of the things that really killed us, was the deductible. We paid all these bills all year long. You get to January, well, your deductible just reset. Now you've got to pay $1,000 for your next whatever it is until they'll start covering again. And it's just a never ending cycle,
I know. Meanwhile, the people at the health insurance companies, they're feeling pretty good. They're making a whole lot of money at our expense. There's no question about that. Yeah, we talked about that on the show many, many, many times. So your primary is on Tuesday, next Tuesday. You got one person in the race. How's everything looking right now? What are you hearing?
I think it's looking great. We've had so much momentum from the start of this. We've been running now officially for about 2 months, strategizing a few months before that, figuring out how we're going to do everything. But since the very beginning, we've really ruffled some feathers here, made some news. Shortly thereafter, we got Bernie Sanders' endorsement. Now we've been going to events and talking to voters and knocking on doors and talking to voters. And just about 90% of the people I run into already know my name and know who I am. So that's just been a big change for something I didn't really expect. But yeah, I think we've gained a lot of support. We've had a lot of great people come out and help us. I've got a bunch of volunteers that are just super great. It's really been awesome. I really think we can take this home on Tuesday.
Good. Well, what I want to do now is I'm going to take a quick break. I want to talk about your platform, and you got a lot of good things to talk about. Focusing on what actually matters. We'll get into that. Ending corruption and insider trading. My gosh, that's ridiculous that the members of Congress are privy to information that we do not have. That's why so many, when they enter Congress, they may not have a lot of money, but when they leave, they become millionaires. How does that happen? We'll talk about that and more right after this. Once again, you're listening to America's Workforce. TreyForOklahoma.com is a website you want to go to. Back in a few minutes. Don't go away.
This is America's Workforce. More shows available at awfradio.com.
America's Workforce appreciates our sponsor, the Columbus Central Ohio Building and Construction Trades Council, who represents more than 18,000 workers from 19 affiliated local unions and district councils.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers. You can find more at ifpte.org. America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the Ironworkers. You can find more at ironworkers.org. The Heat and Frost Insulators and Allied Workers are proud to be a title sponsor for America's Workforce Radio. The Insulators Union is leading the way in the mechanical insulation industry, fire stopping, and infectious disease control. Regarded as North America's energy conservation specialists, these professionals are known for their professional work and dedication. You can learn more about the Insulators Union at insulators.org. America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the Heat and Frost Insulators Labor Management Cooperative Trust. Find out more at insulators.org/LMCT.
America's Workforce is sponsored in part by Boyd Watterson Asset Management, LLC. Find out more about our investment solutions tailored to meet the needs of Taft-Hartley funds at boydwatterson.com.
Hire union musicians. Call Music Talent of Cleveland at 216-881-1802. Call Music Talent of Cleveland as your dependable source for professional musicians in Northeast Ohio. Union musicians add harmony to weddings, elegance to parties, and uplifting music for all events. Music Talent of Cleveland contracts solo and ensemble musicians as well as bands and orchestras for single engagements. So hire union musicians. Call Music Talent of Cleveland today. 216-881-1802.
Now, back to Ed Flash Ferens with America's Workforce.
And remember, you can check us out on at least 5 platforms. That includes YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Pandora. And when you get an opportunity, here's what you do. Just sign up and receive our shows on a regular basis and give us a rating. Always appreciate those 5-star ratings, so please keep them coming. Let's go back to Oklahoma. Our featured guest today, Trey Martin. He is an iron worker, a union leader. He's president of Ironworkers Local 48 in Oklahoma. They have about 200 strong. He discovered the Ironworkers when he was 19, doing pretty well. Wife got sick, had a hard time paying the bills, and he still had a pretty good health plan, but that's the status of healthcare in America. Primary is on Tuesday. Let's talk about your platform here. One of the things I notice when these races happen, especially, and you're going to see this, I'm assuming you're going to win on Tuesday. I'm going to start right there. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I'm assuming it too.
Okay. Okay, but moving forward, you know how these culture wars kind of corrupt the messaging. I had this conversation with Brian Poindexter too, because his opponent, well, he's got some personal issues, and he said, "Flash, I'm going to stick to what really matters: kitchen table politics, affordability, high price of gas, high price of groceries, these kind of things. You got to focus on, because this is what matters to everyday people. I mean, we all know that, but these so-called culture wars get in the middle of everything. They try to disrupt that conversation. Talk to me about, well, number one, I understand you're a gun owner. You also want to protect the border. Talk to me about that part, Trey.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the war against guns that a lot of the Democrats are trying to push and all that, that's one of those things that has really separated Republicans from wanting to ever, be independent or voting for a Democrat. The guns are a big deal, especially here in Oklahoma. I think most Democrats probably own guns here in Oklahoma. And so I think we should represent the Oklahomans here and how Democrats really are here. To protect the border, I don't like how they've been doing it with the ICE people going out, and arresting people randomly on the streets, basically. I feel like that money could be much better invested into our border, making a more secure border, a more efficient border, and getting some judges down there so we can move along this process. Because there's a lot of good people that just want to come here and build lives and work. I think they should have that opportunity, and we want them to have that opportunity. But at the same time, we can't have people crossing the border illegally. I understand that is illegal. But, also the people who have been here, who did come here illegally, and they've been working great lives and raising their families, I think we should offer, some kind of pathway to citizenship for them as well.
Trey, you mentioned earlier that the problem in Congress is They don't come from the working class anymore. And I'm reading only like 2% of Congress comes from the working class. You got millionaires and billionaires. And if they're not a millionaire, they become one in Congress, usually by trading stocks. Obviously, you don't fit into that category, brother.
No.
So maybe you could speak to that and how you could probably correct that. I know that I guess there's some speaking out about that. They got to stop the stock trading. This is ridiculous. Maybe we could start right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Insider trading is illegal. If you work for a company and, you're trading on their stocks for some information you got in a meeting, you're going to face consequences of that. I think Congress isn't any different, or people in government aren't any different. If you just left a meeting that told you that some stock's going to go up or the price of oil is going to go up or down, and now you're going out and trading on it, well, that to me is insider trading. So yeah, I think that we should have a ban for Congress members trading single stocks. That doesn't mean that they can't invest, but they would be investing in broader things. Maybe to actually give them an incentive to do some work up there and make the economy better if they were invested in bonds and ETFs and stuff like that.
What about higher wages, stronger jobs? I saw that on your website. The website, by the way, is treyforoklahoma.com. I don't know what the minimum wages is in Oklahoma. I know it's a right-to-work state. I would imagine wages could use a little boost there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the minimum wage here is still what the federal is. It's $7.25 or something like that. Actually, on Tuesday, we are voting on State Question 832 to raise the minimum wage, raise it to $12 an hour. Which still isn't enough, but with that law, it steps up gradually over the next couple of years, and then after that, it'll raise with the cost of living. That's a big vote. I think a lot of people are going to come out for that, but really it's not enough. I mean, here, I believe that, a living wage here is at least $18 an hour, where housing costs are outrageous. I mean, everybody knows the price of fuel and groceries and utilities has just gone through the roof. In most cases, wages have not kept up. Even with us, we negotiate our wages every single year. It's still a struggle just to keep up with the inflation that we're going through. It's tough.
Here's another issue: defending and supporting strong public schools, and what we have seen in America. Not so much in California. I think they have a ban on vouchers over there, but we saw a shift of taxpayers' money, public money, going into private schools. What's the situation in Oklahoma, Trey?
It's the exact same thing. We have rural schools that are underfunded. We have inner city schools that hundreds of kids go to that are underfunded and just really terrible. I think we're ranked 49th, 50th in the United States for education. And we have some of the lowest paid teachers in the United States. And I think it's largely due to those voucher programs. We have those voucher programs going on here. They're not really helping anyone. They act like it's a tax break for people so they can send their kids to private schools, but 90% of the people who are taking advantage of them were already sending their kids to private schools, and 90% of the population still can't send their kids to public schools. So it's just a ploy to take public money and put it into a private entity.
So I would assume that you have a supermajority conservative leadership over there in Oklahoma, and I guess I'm assuming right, huh?
Yeah, that's yeah. If you couldn't tell by the rating in education, yeah, we have a supermajority conservative here. Yeah,
that's kind of put a kind of a roadblock on moving workers first here, focusing on what actually matters. That's the number one point on your platform here. Maybe you could focus on that. Just talk about how everything is resonating right now.
Yeah, like you said, focusing on what matters. That's what matters to everyday people. And it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, Independent, Republican. You're still going through the same struggle of trying to pay your bills, trying to raise your family, hoping to buy a house one day. Seems out of reach to so many people. And lastly, hoping to retire one day, which I think a lot of people my age and even older are just have no clue what they're going to do. The economy hasn't been working for us. Congress hasn't been working for us. That's what I'm absolutely trying to change. And I think that's how we bring all the people over. We get past the culture war stuff. When we talk about real everyday issues, the independents and the Republicans, they're nodding their heads right along with us. They understand that the costs are too high. Inflation's too high. Healthcare costs are too high. That's how you win a race here. You have to focus on the real people and be on the ground and really understand the people on the ground here.
Well, I like what you say on your homepage. The people who do the work should have more power than the people at the top. It's time for Washington to learn who's boss. You think about people like yourself, myself, people that are listening to this show. We're the people that are actually making America hum, you know?
Right.
So we need a louder voice. And Trey, you could be one of them. So my hat's off to you, brother. Anything else you'd like to say as we button this up?
You know, just everybody just get out and vote. Be a part of this country. Vote. Get the people you want in office. If you're up to it, try to run for office and get involved. Just because you're middle class doesn't mean that you can't have a say in our government.
Trey Martin, president of Ironworkers Local 48 in Oklahoma. Trey for Oklahoma.com. We'll see what happens on Tuesday. You take care. Stay in touch with us, okay?
Will do. Thank you very much.
And that'll be it for another edition of America's Workforce. Coming up on Monday, labor lawyer Andrew Strom will be joining us talking about the dismantling of the National Labor Relations Board. Until then, all of you have a safe and wonderful weekend.
That concludes another episode of the America's Workforce Radio Podcast. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss a show. America's Workforce is a production of Labor Tools and BMA Media Group. Find out more information online at labortools.com.